Is there one thing that someone said to you that helped you maybe creating the sound that you didn't know before you actually well, spoke to them?
Well, there's many, but I remember one moment with, in fact, Ray Parker. And I had started working on the album, and I had done a few sessions with individual musicians. So a guitar-only session, a bass-only session. But my first session with multiple musicians was with Ray Parker Jr. on guitar, his best friend, legendary bassist Freddie Washington, and their best friend, legendary drummer Ollie E. Brown, who coincidentally was behind the Breakin soundtrack. So you can see how my life really came full circle again.
When did you know this?
That's another story.
Okay, well,
you want to hear that story too?
Yeah, just the first story.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's a great story.
Yeah.
So I'm in the studio. It's my first time with multiple musicians, and Ray, Ollie, and Freddie are in the live room, and I'm in the control room. And I'm letting them play. Me and my production partner, Greg, always created the foundation of these tracks before I went live. Before I even went to my live musicians, I knew it was a hit. And there was no live instrumentation yet on it. And they're playing it, and it's coming to life, and the magic's in the air, and I'm just kind of leaning back, and it's going great. And Ray stops everyone. Ray was kind of the leader that day, and he says, "How are we doing?" And I say, "Amazing, keep going." And he says, "No, but you tell us what you want us to do. You're the producer." So, oh. And he goes, "You know this music as well as anyone in the room. Tell us what you want us to do." And from that moment on, the sleeves got rolled up, and it was on. And that was a pivotal point in the process to where this legendary recording artist, legendary musician, instilled in me that last bang of confidence that I needed to take this project to the next chapter. When I was first sitting in Ray's house, and he's listening to a couple things I had. I think the John Legend and Estelle song had been recorded, and a couple other instrumentals. And I play him the 25 songs of inspiration at his request. And he says, "You know, I played on 12 of those." I was like, "No way." He's like, "I played on Cheryl Lynn, To Be Real, and this one, and that." And I'm like, "Oh my God." He said, "You need to get my boy Freddie Washington. He wrote Forget Me Nots for Patrice Rushen." For all the young people out there, that was sampled by Will Smith from Men in Black. So Freddie wrote, not only the bass part, he wrote the song, and Patrice had a huge hit with the song Forget Me Nots. And you have to call my boy Ollie Brown. He played drums for the Jacksons and DeBarge and Rick James. And I say, "Is that Ollie Brown from Ollie and Jerry?" Ollie and Jerry was the group who sang the lead song from the Breakin soundtrack, There's No Stopping Us Now. So Ray says, "Yeah, Ollie and Jerry, how do you know?" I said, "Breakin's my favorite movie of all time." So he said, "I'm going to get Ollie to call you later." So later, Ollie calls me. And all Ollie is interested in talking about is this session that we're planning on getting the guys back together. And all I want to talk about is Turo and Ozone and Breakin.
And what special story did he tell about that soundtrack?
Oh, tons. I mean, all I kept asking him the whole, we spent 2 days in the studio, the four of us, and it was more Breakin talk than he'd probably ever talked before.
Is there one short story that you can share, or?
Well, it was interesting because at that time, 1983, 84, a lot of R&B music had shifted from live instruments to machines. But musicians were still playing the machines, meaning the drummers were programming the drum machines, or the drummers were hitting the synth pads instead of the live drum kit. So he explained to me a lot about how those records were recorded, particularly the lead song off the soundtrack, and how he set up the synth pads in Ray's house, and a lot about how that was kind of the transformation of his career from the instruments to the machines.
Well, then there's another part. You work with many, well, Rowan Thicke, John Legend. How did you ask these people? Did you write the songs with them in mind, or and then, well, phoned them or contacted them, or how did it go for each song?
Well, after I had channeled the sound, right, I knew I needed a new voice, and I knew that the voices not only had to represent my generation, but had to represent all genres of music. I needed voices from the R&B world, the pop world, the electronic world, the rock and roll world, all walks of life coming together under this one sound. So one at a time, I reached out to some of the greatest recording artists of my era to write and record original songs. John Legend, Estelle, Kelly Rowland, Melanie Fiona, Mary J. Blige, Chromeo, Passion Pit, Neo, Cee Lo, Robin Thicke, Jessie J, Usher, and R. Kelly.
Did they know you, all of them?
Some of the relationships preceded the album. Mary J. Blige, for example, had hired me to DJ many parties for her. I had relationships with John Legend and with Robin Thicke and with Kelly Rowland. But then there were other relationships like Cee Lo and R. Kelly. I had never met them. To recruit R. Kelly for this album, I traveled to Chicago 8 times over 20 months. I went to 6 shows on his tour. I went to his book signing and bought his book and waited in line for 7 hours. This was all before I was signed to Columbia Records too, on my own time, on my own dime. To recruit Cee Lo, I crashed a $25,000 a plate black tie dinner and knocked on the door of his room and said, "I'm DJ Cassidy."
What did they tell you? What did Cee Lo tell you, or what did R. Kelly tell you, or what was their first reaction?
Well, you know, I never pitched this project on email. I never pitched this project on the phone. It took perseverance and persistence and patience to get in a room. But once I was in the room, I knew I'd have them. They needed to see the honesty and the sincerity of my vision, and they needed to look in my eyes and see that. And people often ask me, how did you know that they too would want to join you on your mission? And I knew because I had traveled the world and played for so many different kinds of people, cultural leaders to just your average party goers. And what I realized is that most people I came in contact with were inspired by this music.
Yeah.
And the music of this era turned out to be your favorite singer's favorite music. And it was theirs too. And they were inspired that someone was on this crusade, and they wanted to join in.
But did you write the songs with them in mind, or did they pick the songs that they liked? Or?
No, me and my partner worked on this music and followed our inspiration, followed the waves of the water, wherever it took us. And whenever I met with an artist, I played that artist whatever I had. It could be a finished track with all live music. It could be 3 finished tracks with all live music. It could be a skeleton of a track made on machine. Whatever I had at the moment, I shared with that artist. And whatever was available was open to them.
The album is called Paradise Royale. When did you come up with the album title? When during the whole process of those 4 years?
Well, I came up with the name Paradise Royale about 2 or 3 years into the journey, and it's been a 4-year journey. But the idea of the Paradise Royale existed from day one. I've traveled the world watching all different kinds of people dance, right? And I've seen them all dance to this one kind of music. That's why I call it the most universal dance music of all time. And I always envisioned a place that all these kinds of people would come together to dance to this one sound. What if everyone, old, young, black, white, rich, poor, American, Asian, African, European, people of all shapes, sizes, styles, flavors, what if all these people actually came to the same party? That would kind of be like a paradise. That would be like partying in paradise. When music actually can bring everyone together, it's almost a fantasy. It's a fantasy world. And I envision that fantasy world to have palm trees and flamingos running around. And that was my idea of a paradise, my idea of a fantasy world. And I called that place the Paradise Royale.
And the Royale meaning?
Well, when everyone comes together, right? It's like a royal occasion. It's like a regal thing. It's something you can't explain, right? Only a king and queen could summon everyone together. You know, it's part of the fantasy. It's where we all come and we're all one, so we're all kind of like the prince and princess dancing at one party.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to stop.